Good afternoon, everyone. Apologies for the late start. Can we start now, Dr. Ramesh and Dr. Reshma?
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I would like to acknowledge the presence of our Head of Studies, Dr. Ramesh and Dr. Reshma, and our Head of Department, Dr. Habiba Ma'am, and the rest of our faculty in the Business Department. Today, we are presenting Audit Committee Overlapping and Forward-Looking Disclosure, an untold story of Omani financial institutions. On behalf of the Staff Development Committee of the Business Department, it is an honor for me to welcome Professor Dr. Khaled Hussainey of the University of Portsmouth, UK. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your MS Team control panel. I'll bring them up after the presentation. A recorded version of this webinar will be available soon. Also, please mute your microphone. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to Ms. Jasmine to introduce our guest speaker. Ms. Jasmine, please do the honor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Venancio. Good morning, all. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Dr. Khaled Hussainey. Dr. Khaled is a professor of accounting and financial management at the University of Portsmouth. He has published 130 referred papers in academic journals and international conference proceedings. He has a rapidly growing research reputation around his principal research area concerned with corporate narrative reporting. He has been awarded the prestigious 2007 Best Paper Award of the British Accounting Review for his paper Loss Firms Annual Report Narratives and Share Price Anticipation of Earnings. And he also been awarded the prestigious 2012 Best Paper Award of the Journal of Risk of Finance for his paper Revisiting the Capital Structure Puzzle, UK Evidence. His publication appears top quality journals such as Accounting and Business Research, British Accounting Review, International Review of Financial Analysis, Journal of Accounting and Public Policy, Review of Quantitative Finance and Accounting, and Journal of International Accounting, Auditing and Taxation. He is a co-editor-in-chief of JFRA and associate editor of JAR and JPE. Business Department is happy to have you today with us, sir. Thank you all. Over to Dr. Khaled.
Okay, shall I share my PowerPoint first?
Yes, please, Doctor.
Okay. So can you see my screen?
Not yet, Doctor. Okay, we can see you, Doctor. Go ahead.
First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me for this seminar. It's my great pleasure to join you as a guest speaker for one of my research paper. Many thanks for inviting me. Also, I would like to thank all who involved in this seminar preparation and the presentation, like the IT people who helped me to log in. And sorry for the delay for about 18 minutes now. I will present today one of my paper, and when I received the invitation, I found that this paper is the most relevant paper to you because your university in Oman, and the paper is about Oman financial institutions. And I will explain in this paper why I choose Oman, why I choose this topic specifically, why I consider this as untold story in the Omani context. So this paper is jointly written with my PhD student Hidayah Lawati. She is Omani and she is studying her PhD at University of Portsmouth. I am Khaled Hussainey and the second supervisor, Dr. Rosa Sagitova. In my presentation, I will try to give like an overview about the topic in general, in case if some of my colleagues are not expert in accounting or are not interested in accounting. So just I will give a brief overview. Then I will mention to the main concepts I used in the paper, then the research motivation, aims and objectives, the research questions, research literature, the main contribution and our research hypothesis, research method, then the key findings and the conclusion. First of all, when we talk about disclosure, we mean that information released from managers to stakeholders, from insiders to outsiders. And also the word disclosure is too general. It might be financial disclosure or non-financial disclosure. We might talk about voluntary disclosure or mandatory disclosure. So disclosure is too general word and classified in financial reporting into different categories. So one of these categories, when we mention to the nature of the disclosure, we have mandatory disclosure, which is required by law, by standards, like preparing the financial statements, statement of financial position, profit and loss account, cash flow, and statement of change in equity. Also, the notes to the financial statement is considered as mandatory disclosure. But when we
Doctor,
mention,
excuse me, doctor. Can you please share your screen, doctor?
okay,
I mean your PowerPoint slides.
I share it. Okay, I will make it again. So can you see it now?
Doctor, go ahead.
Can you see it?
Yes, doctor. Go
Okay.
ahead, sir.
So when we mention to disclosure, disclosure might be mandatory, which is required by law, like the for financial statements, or voluntary, which any extra effort by the company to disclose any additional information voluntarily. And if we look at this example, you will find that we are differentiating between two types of disclosure. This one of Omani companies, Oman Air, they have like financial statement. These represent what we called mandatory disclosure or numerical disclosure. And also we have the chairman statement when we mention to this type of disclosure as narrative disclosure. So in the chairman statement, you will find some paragraphs discuss like the current performance of the company and the future performance of the company. So we was interested in forward-looking disclosure because forward-looking disclosure is about any information about the future. So companies try nowadays to provide information about the future to help stakeholders to make decisions. And as we know, decisions always linked with information about the future. So we believe that forward-looking information is a very important type of information in the annual report because it helps investors to predict the future, and also it helps all stakeholders to make decisions. So forward-looking disclosure include information about risk, about uncertainty, and always we found some verbs referring to the future like expect or anticipate or predict and so on. In the literature, they have mentioned that forward-looking disclosure is very important for a very simple reason, which is financial statement represent what has been done over the last 12 months. So some people believe that financial statement represent past information. Investors and other stakeholders need information about the future. Therefore, the new business model nowadays contains information about the future, about risk, uncertainty, include financial and non-financial information. So we need information about the future because this information help to reduce what we call information asymmetry between managers and stakeholders. And the literature found that this type of information is very useful for current and future stakeholders, specifically the financial analysts and investors. So when we looked at the literature in this area, we found that most of the studies looking at forward-looking disclosure are descriptive. They describe what types of information disclosed in the annual report. Other study looked at what factors drive the company to disclose information. And the third group of study looked at the impact of disclosure on the stock market or the cost of capital or the firm value. So this in general, what the research has been done in the forward-looking disclosure area. So what they found, they always found that the level of this forward-looking disclosure varies between companies over years and also between industries and even between countries. And the literature also found that firm characteristics and corporate governance characteristics are the main factors which drive companies to disclose information about the future. And finally, they found that disclosure also impact the share price anticipation of earnings. So disclosure about future information in the annual report has a positive impact about investors in the stock markets. So most of the literature discuss these variables, and what we found that most of the literature agreed that audit committee members play a major role in the financial reporting to ensure the financial reporting are of high quality. So the main role of Financial Audit Committee is to oversee the financial reporting and disclosure process, and the literature found that audit committee size, like the number of audit committee members, audit committee independence, the number of their meetings, all these variables or characteristics affect disclosure quality. So what is new in our paper? In our paper, we have observed that since the global financial crisis, there is a new variable which called audit committee overlapping. We found after the financial crisis, researchers start claiming the companies and the crisis. They have mentioned that this crisis was due to low quality of information and the low quality of corporate governance system in the company. So they have mentioned that one variable which might help in improving the quality of financial reporting is the audit committee overlapping, because they expected some benefit from this overlapping of the audit committee members between different committees. But what the literature found, they looked at audit committee overlapping and study the impact of audit committee overlapping on financial reporting quality. They used some proxy for financial reporting quality. So they have used earnings management and audit fees as a proxy for financial reporting quality. But to the best of my knowledge, there is no study have examined directly how audit committee overlapping affect narrative disclosure or forward-looking disclosure. So in my research, I try to examine the impact of audit committee overlapping on the quality and the quantity of forward-looking disclosure in financial institutions in Oman. And here, this is a concept I'm using in my presentation. Sometimes I will refer to interlock audit committee members. The word interlock here means that multiple audit committee external directorship, which means that the audit committee member has external memberships in other companies outside his company. So this represents the number of audit committee members serving on external firm boards. But the main focus of my paper is about overlap audit committee members, which means that the audit committee is member in different committees within the same company. So we measure overlap audit committee members by the number of audit committee members serving on multiple board committees for the firm in same year. Also, we look at forward-looking disclosure and this information about future plans and future forecasts. When we mention to disclosure quality, I mean the number of sentences referring to the future in the financial statements or the financial report in general. When I refer to disclosure quality, I mean the attributes of these sentences. So I will start by mentioning to the told story in Oman. What we know about Oman. We know about Oman that they have a very strong corporate governance system, and this corporate governance has been issued in 2002 by so it's issued in 2002, and Omani companies start implement this code in 2004. And in 2016, they have like a modification or a revised version of the code, which includes the overlapping audit committee issue. So looking at the code itself, we found that the Capital Market Authority revised the current code in 2016, and in the revised code, they have mentioned to the audit committee overlap. And we found the story mentioned in the corporate governance code in Oman in 2016 is very interesting. Also, we found that in Oman, they are keen about governance and sustainability. So they have Center of Governance and Sustainability, and this center is working hard to be sure that companies have applied high quality corporate governance and companies are increasing their transparency. So they have like annual conference discussing the role of the board of directors and how to improve disclosure and transparency. So we found that they are keen about disclosure, they are keen about governance. Also, when I looked at Omani Vision 2040, I found they have mentioned to information about the future, they have mentioned to governance, so they are keen to improve the quality of financial reporting, and they encourage companies to disclose more information to achieve the Omani Vision 2040, and at the same time increasing transparency will have a positive impact on investors. But when I looked at the Capital Market Authority in Oman, I found that they have mentioned to KPMG, which was suspended from auditing for a year because of some corruptions or something happened for KPMG. And we know that KPMG is one of the big four firms. So this attracted me to look in depth in research. How can this suspension has been done for KPMG, and at the same time we are saying that we have a good corporate governance system in Oman? So I started by looking at Omani context. So when I looked at the corporate governance code in Oman, I found it's meets the international standard for governance. And what I see in the revised version of the code in 2016, they have raised the point of overlapping. What they have mentioned that they mentioned that overlapping is not permitted for audit committee chair, which means that audit committee chair is not allowed to be overlapped over different committees. But on the other hand, they have mentioned that all audit committee members are welcome to be overlapped between committees. And I found it very strange. How can you prevent the audit committee chair to be overlapped in different committee, and at the same time you allowed all audit committee members to be overlapped? I didn't find any rationale for this case, but I found it very interesting, and in my paper I try to provide evidence if the case mentioned by the audit committee or the corporate governance code in Oman makes sense, or the corporate governance code in Oman should be revised to consider the role of audit committee chair. Also, in Oman, as I mentioned, I focus in Oman because of recent scandals in different Omani companies, including one of the big audit firms, which is KPMG. And the literature always mentions that if the corporate governance system in a company is ineffective, if of low quality, this will impact the quality of financial reporting as well. And also in late 2019, there was annual corporate governance conference organized by Omani Center for Governance and Sustainability. They raised the issue about the role of the board of directors in improving the quality of corporate disclosure. Also, I decided to look at forward-looking disclosure in Oman, as I mentioned, because of the Omani Vision 2040, which encourage company to disclose information in their report. And I found that the companies disclose information and they mention that they try to meet the Omani Vision 2040. And also I found that most of Omani companies disclose information about the future. And even the code itself, the corporate governance code, encourage companies to disclose information which help stakeholders in making decisions. And the literature provide evidence that forward-looking disclosure is one of the key item or the key information which help stakeholders in making decisions. Also, the corporate governance code suggests company to include forward-looking information in their annual report. And by looking at a number of annual reports, before I start my research, I found yes, Omani companies are very active compared with many other companies in the Gulf area, disclosing information about the future. Also, I was interested to look at the Omani financial institution because I strongly believe that, like many other countries, financial institutions are more regulated compared when non-financial institutions. And also the Omani financial sector has maintained a steady growth, and also it provides credits and service to other industry, and this will have an impact on the overall committee in Oman. So what's the research problem? The research problem that I found that audit committee chair overlapping is not desirable in the Omani context and in the Omani corporate governance. But what I found in the literature, some theories suggest that overlapping help to improve the quality of financial reporting. So I said to myself that if I test the impact of audit committee share overlapping on the financial reporting quality, if I found any positive impacts, this might suggest that the Omani code should be revised to allow audit committee chair to be overlapped. If I didn't find any significant result, I can say, okay, we agree with the Omani code that audit committee chairs should not be overlapped. So I have a specific research aim and the questions. The first aim to study the consequences of audit committee overlapping in Oman. And the word consequence here means that what's the impact of audit committee overlapping? What happens if audit committee overlap? Specifically, I'm trying to achieve three objectives. The first objective, to examine the impact of audit committee overlapping on forward-looking disclosure in general. And then I will look at different types of overlapping and how these different types of overlapping affect forward-looking disclosure. And I will differentiate in the third objective between the quality and quantity of forward-looking disclosure to see if audit committee overlapping affect quality and the quantity of forward-looking disclosure similarly or differently. So my main research question, to what extent audit committee overlapping is considered as beneficial or harmful for the users of the corporate narrative reporting? In other words, I try to ask, does audit committee overlapping improve the quality and the quantity of forward-looking disclosure? If yes, which type of overlapping matter? So looking at the literature in this area, I found that there's a number or a limited number of studies which look at audit committee overlapping and its impact on the quality of financial reporting. And most of these studies did not measure the quality of financial reporting, but they have used proxies for the quality of financial reporting. For example, they have used earnings management or accruals. They also use audit fees as a proxy for the financial reporting quality. None of these studies look at the disclosure itself, the information disclosed by the company. So we believe this is one of the major gaps in the literature. Also, most or all studies look at overlap issue was based on USA. So no research has been done in the developing countries or MENA countries or the Gulf area. Also, what we found is that most of the research done has been focused on non-financial companies. So, to the best of our knowledge, there is no research at all in this area focusing on the financial institution. So, we believe that this will be like the first empirical evidence about the impact of audit committee overlapping on the quality and the quantity of disclosure in Oman. So, we focus on financial sector. We provide evidence that quantity should not be used as a proxy for quality because these are different concepts. And also in our paper, we provide a significant contribution to the literature by looking at different measures of overlapping. So we have number of audit committee overlapping, audit committee chairperson overlapping, the percentage of audit committee overlapping with compensation committee, with risk committee, audit committee overlapping with financial expertise, audit committee overlapping with multiple directorships, audit committee overlapping with chair ownerships. So these are very new measures introduced in our paper, and we believe that this will contribute to the literature in this area. And to develop our research hypothesis, we have based mainly on two theories. The first one, agency theory. Agency theory suggests a positive impact on the quality of financial reporting for overlapping. So if audit committee overlap, this will increase the quality of financial reporting. For a specific reason, they believe that when audit committee overlap, this will reduce the information asymmetry between the committee members and decreasing the information asymmetry between the committee members will increase the quality of financial reporting. Another opinion, when audit committee overlap, he will gain additional information and better understanding of the firm. Therefore, they will be able to disclose high quality of information. So what the study found in this area, they found yes, overlapping affect the quality positively. So they found audit committee overlapping enhance the quality of financial reporting. Another study found again, yes, high disclosure quality is linked with overlapping audit committee members. So based on the agency theory, we believe that in Oman, the quality of financial reporting, specifically the quality of forward-looking disclosure, will be improved when audit committee overlaps. There is another theory, it's called busyness theory, which they believe that if the audit committee overlap, they will be very busy. They will be too overloaded to undertake tasks, and this will affect negatively their efficiency. And they provide some empirical evidence about audit committee overlapping. They have mentioned that when they are overlapped, they will be very busy, and this badly affect the quality of financial reporting and the proxy for the quality of financial reporting by using earnings management and audit fees. We say that yes, if the audit committee members is very busy, we are not sure if this will affect the quality of disclosure. But what we expect is that if they are too busy, they will not focus on the quantity of disclosure. So they will not talk more, but they will give us information of high quality. So we still believe that even if they are busy, this will lead them to focus only on the quality of the information rather than the quantity of the information. So based on that, we believe that based on the agency theory, there is a positive impact on audit committee overlapping on the quality of forward-looking disclosure. Based on business theory, overlapping will lead to decrease the quantity of the information, which indirectly indicates that audit committee members will focus on the quality when they are very busy. So we tried to test 7 research hypotheses to study the link between different types of audit committee overlapping and the quality and the quantity of disclosure. So H1, audit committee overlapping membership positively affect disclosure quality or negatively affect disclosure quantity. So here we look at the overall audit committee overlapping membership. The H2 focus only on audit committee chair. We hypothesized that audit committee chair membership on other committee positively affect disclosure quality, but negatively affect disclosure quantity. H3, audit committee overlap directorship with accounting and financial skills positively affect quality and negatively affect quantity. Number 4, we look at the overlapping with compensation committee. Number 5, we look at overlapping with risk committee. Number 6, we looked at very busy audit committee member who overlapped internally, and at the same time, he has some external directorships as well. So this very busy person. And the number 7, we looked at audit committee shared overlap who has some ownership in the company and how does this affect the quality and the quantity of disclosure. So we choose all Omani financial institutions. It was 36 observation. We looked at the period of 2014-2018, which represent 2 years before and 2 years after the revised corporate governance code. We collect information manually from the annual report and also from Bloomberg. We use manual content analysis by reading the annual report of the financial institutions in Oman to identify the quality and the quantity of forward-looking disclosure, and we use some regression models to test our research hypothesis. So our sample is 36, representing banking, insurance, financial service, investment, and real estate companies, and this classification is based on the stock market in Oman. To measure forward-looking disclosure, we focused only on chairman statement because the literature found that chairman statement contains information about the future. So we use content analysis. We measure the quantity of disclosure by counting the number of statements related to forward-looking disclosure. For the quality, we follow BT et al. 2004 by looking at the attributes of the sentence. So if the sentence contains good news or bad news, if the sentence is financial or non-financial, if it is short-term or long-term forecast, if the sentence qualitative or quantitative. And this example or some examples of the sentence we extract from the annual report. So we read the sentence, we classify the sentence if the sentence contains financial information, bad news, or qualitative or short-term. So this for each sentence to measure the quality of forward-looking disclosure. And to validate our measure for forward-looking disclosure, we use different methods. The most common one we used here, Cronbach Alpha, and we found that the Cronbach Alpha score is 91%. In the literature, 70% is acceptable. Anything above 70 indicates that the measure of disclosure is valid. So we got 91%, which means that our measure for disclosure quality and the quantity is valid for the analysis. For the regression models, we use two regression models. The first one represents the quantity of disclosure. The second one represents the quality of disclosure. We consider almost all variables which affect disclosure. We have 7 research hypotheses. So from beta 1 to beta 7, these represent all our variables of interest, which reflect the different types of audit committee overlapping. Then we also control for corporate governance mechanism like audit committee meeting, audit committee size, audit committee female director, and so on. We also control for other firm characteristics in both model. So this slide just show us how we measure the disclosure. So the measure of the disclosure was a number of sentence or the number of statement in the annual report. We look at the overall number, then we looked at financial, non-financial, good news, bad news, qualitative and quantitative. So we try to provide different measure of forward-looking disclosure. This slide shows us our independent variable, which refer to H1 to H7. So the first variable, overlapped audit committee membership, the proportion of audit committee members overlapped. Overlapped audit committee share is 1 and 0 dummy variable, 1 if the audit committee overlap and 0 otherwise. Overlap audit committee with compensation committee, and this one is overlapped audit committee with risk committee. This one overlapped audit committee with external multiple directorships. Overfin AC represents audit committee overlap who has financial and accounting expertise. And finally, the last variable, which related to H7, audit committee overlap who held or represent 5% or more of the firm share. These are our control variables. So we classified our control variables to governance variable. So we consider all governance variables which referred in the literature as factors affecting the level of disclosure. We also considered a number of firm characteristics which shown in the literature that these affect level of disclosure. And also we consider some variables which we believe that it's family country related variable. For example, we have relatives. It's a dummy variable. 1 if the company has a director from the same family and 0 otherwise. Also, we have another variable here is royal, which take a value of 1 if the firm has at least 1 ruling family director on the board and 0 otherwise. So most of these variables, all these variable has been chosen based on different literature, but the last 2 variables are the first time to be used in disclosure of forward-looking information. For the descriptive analysis, what we found that on average, Omani financial institutions produce 13 sentences about the future in the chairman statement, although some banks or some firms don't provide any information about the future, and others provide a maximum of 40 sentences about the future. When we look at financial and non-financial indicators, we found that mostly the company or mostly these company provide a good balance between financial and the non-financial forward-looking disclosure. When we looked at good news information and the bad news information, what we observed that Omani institutions are very biased to choose good news information in their annual report, because as you can see, the number of sentences referring to good news is about 12. This compared with just 2 sentences on average referring to bad news information. Also, what we found that the disclosure itself is long-term. So when we compare short-term forecast with long-term forecast, we found that most of the statements in the chairman of financial institutions in Oman are long-term forecast because they are trying to say that we are meeting the Omani Vision 2040, so they disclose long-term statements or long-term forecast in their statements. And finally, what we found also when we compare if the statement is quantitative with numbers or just a qualitative sentence, we found that most of the information in the chairman statement of Omani institutions are qualitative without numbers. We do the correlation analysis. What we found in the correlation analysis, we found that there is no correlation between disclosure quantity and disclosure quality. And we conclude that disclosure quantity should not be used as a proxy for disclosure quality, because most of the literature in this area use the quantity of sentence and consider this as a proxy for the quality of disclosure. And here we provide evidence that in the Omani context, we can't use disclosure quantity as a proxy for quality. Also, from the correlation, we didn't find any multi-collinearity problem, so we believe that the variables are not correlated with each other. This table summarizes the main result or the main story we found, and this will lead us to get the conclusion after 1 or 2 minutes. First of all, when we look at H1 was looking at the impact of overall audit committee overlapping. So H1 shows that overall audit committee overlapping has a positive impact on the quality of financial reporting and has a negative impact on the quantity of the financial reporting. And we expect this result. What does this mean? It means that if audit committee overlap, the quality of forward-looking disclosure will increase, and at the same time, the quantity of forward-looking disclosure will be decreased. And we like the idea to increase the quantity if the quantity of the information does not add any additional or incremental value to the stakeholders. Omani code mentions that audit committee chair should not be overlapped. So we try to test if they are right in this code or the code should be revised. What do we found? We found that if the audit committee chair overlapped, this will have a positive impact on the quality of forward-looking disclosure, and also will have a negative impact on the quantity of forward-looking disclosure, which means that if audit committee chair overlapped with different committees, the quality will increase, and at the same time, the quantity will decrease, which means that the overall information environment will be healthy for the stakeholders for making decisions. When we looked at this H3, the audit committee overlap with compensation committee, we didn't find any significant result. When we look at the overlapping with the risk committee, we found that overlapping with risk committee has a positive impact on the quality of forward-looking disclosure, but has no impact on quantity of forward-looking disclosure. When we looked at the busy audit committee member who is overlapped internally and also interlock externally, so he's working in different committee in the company, and at the same time he's working at different companies externally. We found this type of overlapping affect the quality and the quantity in a positive way. When we also look at audit committee overlap, who has financial and accounting expertise, we found positive impact on the quality and the quantity of forward-looking disclosure. When audit committee have a share in the company, member have a share in the company, we found a positive impact on the quality of forward-looking disclosure. So this leads us to conclude that, first of all, we believe by this paper we provide a new evidence on how audit committee overlapping and overlapped audit committee share affect the quality and the quantity of forward-looking disclosure. We find that the impact is positive on the quality of forward-looking disclosure and negative on the quantity of forward-looking disclosure. So this was our first conclusion. Our second conclusion, we found that overlapped audit committee members with financial expertise and also with multiple directorships affect both the quality and the quantity of forward-looking disclosure. And the third conclusion, we found that there is no relationship between the quality and the quantity of information, so it is not safe to use disclosure quantity as a proxy for quality. So what we try to tell is the Omani stock market or the regulators in terms of the corporate governance code, we try to tell them that you should consider your code, you should revise the code because we found a positive impact on different measures of overlapping. Therefore, audit committee share should be overlapped because we provide empirical evidence that overlapping audit committee share will increase the quality of financial reporting. At the same time, it will reduce the quantity of financial reporting. And this is my story about this paper, and thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions or comments, I'm happy to listen to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Khaled, for that profound study. Certainly, overlap audit committee members with financial expertise and with multiple directorships positively affect the quantity and quality of forward-looking disclosure. I think one of the major takeaways from this webinar is the fact that no amount of disclosure can compensate for quality. As said earlier, there is no relationship between quantity and quality of forward-looking disclosure, or we call it FLD. True enough, disclosure quantity should not be used as proxy for disclosure quality. Makes a lot of sense indeed. Dr. Khalid, we will go ahead and take some time for questions now.
Okay.
Just a reminder, please be sure to type your questions in the question box in your control panel. It looks like we have few questions from our faculty. This one is from Madam Indu. What are the possible risks faced by companies with overlapping audit committees? Do you think sensitive financial information will be compromised?
Can you repeat again? I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again?
What are the possible risks faced by companies with overlapping audit committees? Do you think sensitive financial information will be compromised?
Yeah, I think the main concern about any sensitive information, this is the main risk might face if audit committee overlapped between companies. But I would say that they are working in the company as a team. There is no sensitive information should be within a specific committee. They should share each other the information they have because different committees are working as a team in the same company. So there shouldn't be any sensitive information between committees.
Okay, I hope that satisfies the question. Another question here, sir. In the context of international regulatory bodies like in the United States, a qualifying audit committee is required for listed public traded companies. To qualify, the committee must be composed of independent outside directors with at least one qualifying as a financial expert. Also, the European Union 8th Directive on Company Law states that each public interest entity shall have an audit committee. At least one member of the audit committee shall be independent and shall have competence in accounting and or auditing. The question is, are the current minimum requirements when it comes to the number of financial experts in the composition of audit committee enough? What is your take on increasing the number of financial experts as members of the audit committee?
Okay, I think if we increase the number of experts in the audit committee, this will lead to improvement in the financial reporting in general, because the main role of the audit committee members is to oversee the financial reporting. So if they are independent, if they are expert in financial reporting, I think this all will contribute to increasing the quality of financial reporting. there is no specific number how many members should be, let's say, have accounting expertise, but I will guess that majority should have to understand the overall business and to translate this understanding into the financial reports.
Okay, sir, I have a follow-up question regarding that same question. What will be the practical and social implications of the result of this study with the forward-looking disclosure requirements of regulatory bodies?
Okay, for the regulators, I think they should reconsider what they have mentioned about audit committee chair not to be overlapped. I think they should revise the code in this particular point, and they should allow audit committee chairs to be overlapped. Also, they should encourage that audit committee members should be appointed if they have accounting or finance background.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Another question from our faculty. Please suggest some ways to control audit committee members overseeing, since it is mentioned that it creates a great impact.
Okay, so how can we control it? I don't know. I think I think this one of their main task is to overseeing the financial reporting, and if they have the required expertise and education in accounting and finance, I think they can get their task or do their task easily and smoothly as well.
Okay, I hope that satisfies the question. Another question, Doctor. Does female members on board of audit committee affect the performance of a company?
Yeah, this is a big debate about the existence of female in general on the board, and the literature in this area always provide mixed result. Some studies say yes, some studies say no. In Oman, I don't know because we didn't study this area, but it's very interesting and hot research area as well.
Okay, another follow-up question, sir. Having the audit committee chair visit the component locations for multi-location audits, is it advisable?
I think yes, it is advisable if the audit committee chair visit all locations and understand well the overall business environment. I think this will increase his ability to understand the business, and when they oversee the financial reporting, they will interpret the financial accounts within his understanding of the overall business. So I think it helps a lot.
Yeah, another question, Doctor. Does the number of audit committee meetings have an impact on the performance of audit committee?
Yes, the literature mentions that increasing the number of audit committee meetings has a positive impact on the effectiveness of audit committee members, and then this affects both the financial reporting and also affect the performance of the company.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. Another question, how the audit committee overlapping negatively influence the quantity of disclosure?
Yes, this is what we believe. When audit committee overlapped they will be very busy. And assume now you are very busy in many tasks and you are required to oversee the financial reporting and write a report. I think when you are busy, you might focus only on the quality of the information rather than repeating the information several times. So we believe that based on the result, when they are busy, they focus on the quantity of the message rather than repeating the message several times. That's why we got like a negative relationship between the quantity and the overlapping.
Thank you, Doctor. That I hope it satisfies the question. Another question from our faculty still. What are the possible risks for companies with audit committee overlapping with effect to financial performance, and suggest the ways to control the effect on its financial performance?
Actually, in another study in the same context, we found that audit committee overlapping improves the financial performance because overlapping, based on our story in the Omani context, reduce the information asymmetry between managers and shareholders. And we found that in decreasing the information asymmetry between insiders and outsiders improve the firm value and the firm performance in the following year. So we found a positive impact for overlapping on performance.
Thank you, Doctor. Another question, what are the elements of corporate reporting are forecasted and disclosed?
I would say that when we look at the narrative section of the annual report, if we look at the chairman's statement, for example, you will find that they disclose everything they like to disclose. So you might find information about the strategy of the firm, you might find information about the risk and uncertainty, you might find any type of non-financial information about product, about service. Nowadays, they are talking about COVID-19. Before, they was talking about how the financial crisis impact the current and the future performance. So if we are talking about the voluntary disclosure or the narrative disclosure, they are free to talk about any matter of their interest, which they believe that this will have a positive impact on the stakeholders.
I think we can take few more questions from our audience. How do earnings management and audit fees act as proxies for financial reporting quality?
Yes, this is a huge literature in this area. People use earnings management as a proxy for financial reporting quality, and they believe that if companies manage their earnings, they manipulate the numbers in the financial statements, and this will be an indication of low financial reporting quality. Also, others use the audit fees as a proxy for the audit quality. They believe that if you pay, first of all, if you hire one of the big audit firms as external auditors for your company, and if you pay high level or high amount of fees, this indicates that external auditors will work hard to ensure that the financial statements are prepared well and accurately and free from any major errors. So in the literature, they use earnings management and audit fees as a proxy for financial reporting quality because they believe that high level of earnings management lead to low financial reporting quality, and the high level of audit fees lead to high level of financial reporting quality as well.
We can take a few more questions. Another one, sir. Audit committee overlapping negatively influence quantity forward-looking disclosures and positively with quality FLD. Why?
Yes, what I'm saying here, because audit committee overlapping, we found it as a very positive thing. So if you overlapped, if you as an audit committee member work in different committee, you will gain experience about all these committees. So you will be in a very strong position to provide information of high quality. But because the audit committee is working in different committees, he is very busy. And when you are busy, you try to focus on the quality of the information rather than the quantity of the information. So you will not repeat the information several times. You will just focus on the main message because you don't have, as an audit committee member, you don't have time to repeat the information or to give more information. Just you will focus on the main message which needed by the stakeholder.
Okay, we have last two questions, Doctor. How do we determine the forward-looking disclosure and its level?
Okay, this is a very simple one. We determine the forward-looking disclosure by reading the annual report. So in my research, for example, I looked at the chairman's statement. I read the chairman's statement. I count the number of sentences related to forward-looking disclosure. So let's say Bank A, when I read the chairman's statement, I count 5 sentences. So the level of forward-looking disclosure in this bank is 5, which means that the bank provide 5 sentences about the future. So like we expect profit to be increased next year. We expect that we will open another branch of this bank in this city. So any single information about the future is counted as forward-looking disclosure, and the level, just we count the number of sentences of forward-looking disclosure.
The last question, Doctor. is there a mandatory requirement to disclose qualitative or quantitative information or both?
Uh, in Oman, I don't think so. In other countries, for example, in America, there is a section called Management Discussion and Analysis. It contains narrative information, and this required all listed company should produce management discussion and analysis, and this contains qualitative information. But in Oman, I think chairman statement is mandatory, but its content is voluntary. So banks or companies are free to write anything in the chairman statement. So it's mandatory in some countries, voluntary in others.
Okay. Um, it looks like we have covered all our questions. Dr. Khalid, is there anything else you wanted to cover before we wrap up? Any final thoughts?
No, just I would like to thank you for inviting me, and I'm happy to give another talk in the near future if you invite me again.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much, Doctor. At this point, may we call on Dr. Ramesh to give us the closing remarks? Dr. Ramesh, please.
Respected guest, Dr. Khalid, respected HOD, Dr. Habiba, my dear colleagues, technical team members, good afternoon to all of you. It was a nice, wonderful session for us. We did not feel that we spent 1 hour with you because the information what you shared is mostly new for us. How audit committee overlapping affects the quality of forward-looking information, and the way how you have narrated us is really motivating us to do such kind of research. It's not easy to conduct these kind of researches because I believe that this kind of research needs definitely a doctoral degree.
Yes.
And because that much of amount has been put by you and your team. And you enlightened us a lot, sir, in terms of audit committee overlapping, agency theory, business theory, and how all of these affect the financial performance, and finally, the quality of information in the financial reporting. And I'm sure, sir, because of your discussion and your thoughts sharing today, definitely our faculty member would do some kind of similar researches in this aspect. As you have highlighted, there are some new information which you have found and added to the existing literature. Definitely, this will be one of the essential point for the future research also. And our team will contribute 1 or 2 papers in this aspect. I positively hope for that. And in such case, definitely our team will follow up you to get some new ideas and input for their research paper. Thank you very much, sir, for your speech and sharing your research work with our team. It would not be successful if our team, staff development committee, and Dr. Nitya, who contacted this resourceful person and extended their full support for success of this webinar. I extend my thanks to our HOD and Dr. Reshma, all other staff members and technical team from ETC for your contributions for successful completion of this program. I also extend my sincere thanks to all staff members, those who are not directly related to this field of accounting, but they were very much interested to attend this program from other section. I extend my sincere thanks to all staff members. Thank you very much, all of you. Once again, thank you very much, Dr. Khalid, for your valuable contribution. Our team will definitely benefit out of this, and your research will also be enhanced and cited by many of our forthcoming researcher. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ramesh, and thank you, Dr. Khalid. Thanks, everyone. We appreciate your participation. Please answer the feedback form. Link is provided in the question box panel. Thanks again for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you all.